Hey, friends, welcome to another episode of Not Your Mama's Podcast. This is episode number 24, and it is Struggle with the Juggle and Imposter Syndrome. In this episode, we are speaking with Mayce DelValle, who is a wife, mom, author, and certified John Maxwell Coach, speaker, and trainer. Mayce's mission is to help people see their own potential and possibilities. She is passionate about helping others overcome fear, take responsibility, make changes, and contribute to the world in real, meaningful ways. Today, Mayce will be talking to us about struggle with the juggle and imposter syndrome. So before we get into today's topic, Mayce, welcome to the show. It's such an honor to have you on. Can you explain to the audience a little bit more about your background and how you got to where you are today?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here today. I love when I have an opportunity to share, parts of my story and to really help other listeners out there, because I think especially with imposter syndrome and quite frankly, struggling, a lot of people are experiencing that now and have been for the past couple of years. So my background is I came from corporate America and realized that is not a job for me. I was a stay-at-home mom for a really long time and went back to corporate and decided this isn't where I wanted to be. So I'm corporate turned entrepreneur. I run two businesses. I sell the coaching program for John Maxwell, and I also have a corporate training business where I really help organizations figure out who they are, who they're supposed to be, and just learn how to lead and communicate better and more effectively.
Awesome. Well, that sounds amazing. Now, tell me, what is the struggle with the juggle? How
Yeah,
can
I
we
think,
go
yeah, I
ahead?
think I was going to say, I think for especially moms, but sometimes dads too, we feel like we have to do all things ourselves. And there's so many things that are thrown at us every single day. If you're married, you've got your relationship, and then you have your kids, depending on what season they're in. Sometimes they need us more than others. And then if you're working full time and trying to balance and manage and harmonize having a personal life inside of that as well. It's just, how can we do all of those things? And I think the struggle that many of us have is that we want to do all of these things all by ourselves. And
Mhm.
that's where it becomes a struggle. We
Yeah.
can juggle things, but the struggle is trying to do it all by ourselves.
So what's the secret? Do we ask for help?
Yes, that is the secret. I learned many, many years ago, very high up in the air on a ropes course. I kind of had this aha moment where I expect people to ask me if I need help. And the reality is, most people are so consumed with what they have going on that they don't think to ask, right? They
Yeah.
don't think to turn around and say, do you need help? They're just worried about keeping themselves above water. So yes, I think the big secret, not so secret, is that if you feel like you're struggling, it's okay to reach out for help, especially as a parent.
Mhm.
So many parents struggle with this, again, depending on what season your kids are in, like getting them to and from school or carpooling from a sport. Both of my kids play sports, both of their practice happens to be at the same time, on the same night, clear across town.
Yeah.
There's no way I can get them both there. And my husband teaches on Wednesday night. So there's no way that I can get both kids where they need to be every single week. And
Yeah.
that's when I do have to phone a friend and say, hey, can you drop off? Can you pick up, or reach out to my mom or someone at my husband's work? And it's okay. People want to help.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people want to help us. It's just figuring out how to ask for help and being brave enough to ask for help.
Yeah. And that was going to be my next question is like, what do you say to the person who's kind of like intimidated or scared or afraid to like ask for help and feel like, well, who am I deserving of help? Like, how can you help someone like overcome that mindset?
Yeah, I think sometimes it's, well, what's the alternative? If you don't ask for help, what's the alternative? It's that struggle, and that struggle is a real thing. And if we
Mhm.
don't ask for help, we're not able to get all of the things that we want accomplished, right?
Yeah.
The alternative for asking for help from someone to pick my son up from practice is he doesn't get to go. And
Yeah.
that's not really helping anybody, right? Or I'm crying because my kid doesn't get to go to practice.
Yeah, it really does take a village to raise a family. And I feel like in today's society, people are afraid to ask for help. We're like afraid of our neighbors, like just kind of like we're not as like friendly as like I think we used to be like maybe back in like the 50s, like
Right. Or when
someone would
I
move
grew
into the
up.
neighborhood and there's like, people are bringing food and like welcoming them. And now people are like, who's the neighbor?
Right.
Like
Exactly.
more like on the
Judging.
suspects.
Yeah. Judging who is that neighbor instead of, hey, maybe that neighbor is my new best friend, or maybe that neighbor can help carpool, or, all of the things as parents and neighbors that we need help with.
Yeah.
It was interesting. I was on the phone with a client the other day, and we were talking about empowerment and how we can empower people. And he's saying, he built a basketball net with his kids a couple weekends ago, and
Hmm.
they used it as a bonding moment. And then 2 weeks later, he saw his neighbor was building a basketball hoop for his kids and was really struggling with it. And he said, I was kind of afraid to ask him if he needed help. I guess a masculinity thing, right? I didn't want him to think that he couldn't do it.
Yeah.
But after 2 weekends, they were still struggling. He's like, you know what? I figured this out. Why wouldn't I go over and ask my neighbor, hey, do you need help? Because here's what I did, and maybe it could be helpful for you. So
Yeah.
I think it is interesting how we'll watch someone struggle for 2 weeks in this instance before we'll say, hey, I just did this. I just went through it, maybe I could be of help.
Yeah. And you're probably what he was been needing the whole time. He's probably like, oh, thank God,
Exactly.
someone's here to help me.
Yes. It was like that lifeline, right? Like, hey, I've done it. Here's the best way. Don't figure it out. And I think that's the thing too, that we could be helpful for each other. Like you had mentioned, it takes a village. Why
Mhm.
do we have to figure everything out on our own when there's people that have done things before us? They might have a better way or a more efficient way
Mhm.
of doing the things. Let's just reach out and be neighborly again.
Exactly. And it's also great for our children too, to
Yes.
kind of get to interact with different personalities, different people, and they learn different things. They're sponges and they absorb so much. So it's good to have them encounter, maybe a different way that like a family does things. So they know, just kind of get a sense of the world and how different everyone is and everything is.
Yeah, and I would say to piggyback on that, it also sets a great message and example for them that it's okay to ask for help. Because if they
Yeah.
see you as the parent saying, okay, this is not in my wheelhouse, this is not my area of expertise, I'm going to ask for help. When they need help with something, maybe they won't struggle as long as they'll say, oh, it's okay to ask for help.
Yeah. So the secret key
Yes.
into getting out of the struggle with the juggle is asking for help.
Yeah, and I would also say, Christina, not necessarily always asking for help, but it's okay to hire help too.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I think sometimes if you think about your family unit as a business, right? And
Mhm.
you're the CEO, who do you need on your quote unquote staff? It's okay to hire a gardener. It's okay to hire someone to clean your home. It's okay to hire someone possibly or do some kind of exchange for carpooling, or hey, I got the kids this week. Do you want to get them next week, or vice versa? So I think if we kind of flip the script and really look at our households as a business and
Yeah.
say, I don't need to do all of this. And if I'm afraid to ask for help, what if I pay for help? I think that's okay too.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. I'm like, yeah, I'm the CEO of my house.
We are the CEOs of our houses. Sometimes
I'm
we're not the
house
boss.
manager here.
Yeah. Sometimes we're not the boss, right? Sometimes our kids or our husbands might be the boss, but we're still the CEO.
I know, right? Well, they think they're the boss.
Yes.
I'm just playing. Um, okay, so now leading on to the next discussion, which I think is something that a lot of women struggle with, is imposter syndrome. So, can you
Yeah.
explain to us exactly what is imposter syndrome and how can we overcome it?
Yeah, I think a great definition of imposter syndrome is that we struggle with perfectionism,
Mhm.
or we believe that, or we're trying to portray this idea that we are perfect or that we have all things managed. And a lot of people will say, let's just fake it till we make it. And I do not believe in that. I believe in we can faith it till we make it. Like if you want to be something and you're not there yet, you don't have to fake that you're there, but you believe in yourself enough that you will get there. So there's a difference between faking it until you make it and faithing it until you make it. Obviously it depends on what your faith background is. And if you are, if you believe in a higher source, as I do, I am a woman of faith. So I believe that I may not be able to handle all things, but he surely can.
Yeah.
Right. So imposter syndrome, we internalize this fear that we're going to be exposed as a fraud. But if we really believe in ourselves enough and we work from this model of authenticity and vulnerability, there is no reason to fake it.
Yeah, totally. And it's funny. I actually used to say, I'm going to, just fake it till you make it,
And
And
I think a lot of people do. I think that's because, that's maybe how we were brought up or what we learned. But I really think that there is no need to fake it. When I do podcasts or when I do training sessions, especially with my teaching partner, one of the first things out of our mouth is we're going to give it to you real. And
yeah,
real does not always mean perfect. We
exactly.
try to be as perfect as we can, but life is full of imperfections and we're not trying to be perfect. We want to be who we are. And that is being vulnerable. It's sometimes making mistakes. It's definitely not being perfect all of the time. We just do the best that we can and be the best that we can for our clients and for the people that we work with.
Totally. I agree. I think I really liked how you put the spin on like faith,
Yeah.
like faith it till you make it, because you really do have to believe inside of you. Is even if you're going to do like the faking it, and I'm putting that in quotes, like you still have
Yeah.
to believe inside of you
Yeah.
that your dreams are possible. What you want to achieve is possible. And it's all in your mindset. It's all about what you think about all day. How are you talking to
100%.
yourself? Like, are you your own worst enemy? I know I have my
Yeah,
problems
of
that
course.
we've
We all
talked
have
before
that.
about that. I'm like, what am I doing with my life?
Yeah. I mean, and I think the thing about faith is it's not clear until you look at it in reverse,
Yeah.
right? When you look at it from the rear view mirror, then you're like, oh, I could see things clearly now, right?
Yeah.
That's the crazy thing about faith. And I think what you just said about you have to believe, you don't necessarily have to believe in yourself. There could be borrowed belief that you're borrowing the belief of your friends or your family or your coworkers. But if
Mhm.
you have belief in him and know that all things are possible through him, you're going to be okay.
Yeah. So real quick, like what can a listener take away on how to shift the imposter syndrome with their self? If you can just run it down one more time so people can really grasp
Concept.
the concept. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. What I would really say is to embrace the idea of authenticity and vulnerability, that nobody is perfect, that people are attracted to imperfections because I want to connect with someone who's like me and
Yeah.
I'm not perfect. So if I think you're perfect, we're not going to connect.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's the truth. And I think the big takeaway is if you have this philosophy as fake it till you make it, that needs to go in the trash. We're not faking it anymore. We are being real. We are showing up, being true to ourselves, as authentic and vulnerable as that needs to be.
Yeah, and making the mistakes along the way because they're
Right,
not
that's where the
failures.
learning is. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. It's all about learning, and
100%.
a mistake isn't a failure. It's just
That's
a
right.
leap forward to a better outcome,
Yeah.
in a different avenue that was probably better for you or whatnot, and
I
or
always
learning
say,
experience, like don't do that again.
yeah, I always say that all biographies are the exact same. It doesn't matter who's you're reading. Even if you wrote one, Christina, even if I wrote one, they are all the same.
Yeah.
Dream, dream, struggle, success.
Yeah.
Everybody has a dream. Every dream, there's a struggle, and that's how you get to the success.
Yeah. Well, it's like movie plots too.
Yeah, of
Like you
course.
always got to have like the main character has this vision and the struggle and then the conquer and the success. I mean, that's like in every story,
Yeah.
even like fiction, nonfiction, like you always have to have the struggle. That's what hooks people.
Yes. That is the greatest story ever told, right?
Exactly. So, before I get into my 4 questions, is there anything else you would like the audience to know about today's topics?
What I would say, especially with imposter syndrome, is you are enough. whatever you are, whatever you want to be, you are enough, meaning you don't have to pretend to be someone else and to try to do more than what you're doing. But if you are struggling with trying to do more, it's okay to ask for help.
Perfect. I love how it all ties together.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're going down to my 4 questions that I love to ask all my guests.
Okay.
And so my first one is, who and what inspires you?
Yeah, I think my family, right? My kids, I just want to be the best version of me that I can be, because we're only on this earth for a short period of time, and I just want to love them and them to love me for being who I am. So my
Yeah.
family for sure.
That's a great answer, not question, answer. And then question number 2 is, what is something you wished you knew when you were younger?
I just was having this conversation over the weekend, actually. The power of networking, to really stay in contact with people, because you never know those connections, what they could do for you or to you in the future. So I would say really trying to stay connected with people in all seasons of life. I wish I would have done a better job of that when I was younger.
No, that's perfect. It kind of, like today I met someone that I went to college with. And, I hadn't, kind of stay connected, but I mean, I feel like meeting her today has been really valuable for me and like kind of where I'm at in my journey. So I totally agree with, staying connected, networking, and you just really never know when that person's going to show up and like be the person that you actually need
Yeah,
in that
exactly.
season or in that moment.
Right, for sure.
Okay. So my third question is, what's the essential part of your daily routine?
Yeah, so for me, it's staying connected, and I have prayer time, quiet time every single morning. I meet with 2 other women 5 days a week, and every single morning we praise and prayer every day. We
Oh,
start our days with praise, what's going right in our life, and sometimes it's I got out of bed today. That's the
yeah.
praise. And then we just ask God to lift all of our burdens, and we pray about it every day.
I think it's important for women to have a sense of connection and like a group where they can go and like talk about their struggles and
Absolutely,
and
community is
feel,
important.
I mean, it's just something about like the woman dynamic when you have your tribe that can really help uplift you out of any struggle, whether it's with your children, home life, with your husband. I mean, definitely to get together to talk shit about your husbands, but
Yeah.
though we love them so much.
Yes.
But yeah, I think it's really important. And I'm glad that you brought that up. Um, because I feel like sometimes, like we kind of mentioned in the beginning, people don't get out there. They're not as friendly, and we're very, isolated from each other.
Yeah,
We're like
absolutely.
afraid to like
Connect.
connect.
Yeah.
Exactly. And what were you gonna say?
No, it was my dog. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. And then what's the best advice you've ever received?
Oh my gosh. A lot of good golden nuggets. The best advice that I've ever received. I'll go back to, this will be something that my dad taught me when it's how we almost ended every conversation, was keep the faith.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So that's what I would
totally.
say.
And
Keep
I
the
feel like,
faith.
especially today more than ever, keep the faith.
Yeah. Whatever that looks like for you, right? That
Exactly.
looks like different things to different people, but keep the faith.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's a great. Well, Macy, thank you so much for coming on today. I'll
You
give
are
you
welcome.
one last moment to speak and say what you want to the audience if you missed anything before, or how can they connect with you and, maybe work with you if you'd want to let the
Yeah.
audience know.
So again, I just think that the biggest message here is just be who you are. Don't try to be anybody else. If you're not a great cook, which I'm not, then, find someone else who can cook for you, or order in, or go out to eat, or, you don't have to be the perfect person that everybody else wants you to be, because then you lose who you are. So just be yourself, be open to being available, authentic, and vulnerable. As far as connecting with me, I didn't mention this to you, I don't think, but I do have a Facebook group with my business partner. It's called Impactful Messages. So it's impactful, so impactful, because it's Missy and Macy, impactful messages. You can find us on Facebook, and it's just a place to, like you were talking about, community, right? It's just a place to come together. We offer free teachings once a month on Zoom through there. So if you're looking for a way to connect, or certainly you can connect with me on Instagram. And I don't know if you can put that in the show notes, but
yeah,
it's
I'll put that all in the show notes.
Okay.
If you want to connect with Macy, I'll have all the links down below so you can connect with her, and it'll be real simple.
Yeah, that'll be great. So I'd say my Facebook group and Instagram at Mayce DelValle, and we'll put those in the show notes for you.
Okay, perfect. Well, guys, thank you for listening to another episode of Not Your Mama's podcast. Again, Macy, thank you so much for coming on. It was such an honor to have you on, and I hope to see you guys all in the next one. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Not Your Mama's podcast. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. We really appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next one.